fourth time in a row, Golden State and Cleveland are here. How are you feeling about this? How much do you like this?
I'm feeling great. You know, as I've said before, I think we should be celebrating greatness. I mean, for LeBron, 8 times in a row, it's the first player in modern NBA history to do that. Take his team here 4 times in a row to see this, as you said, could be Steph right behind us, one of the greatest shooters of all time, and maybe one of the greatest teams of all time. I think it's for basketball aficionados. It's some of the greatest basketball they're ever going to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing tonight's game.
Well, you hear so much about LeBron James and how he might leave Cleveland. How do you personally feel about that? You got a lot of parity in the league. It's not about being in the major markets. It's success all over the place. How do you feel about it?
I hate the fact that we're discussing it in the middle of the series.
Right.
I mean, I know it's just human nature, and people are going to talk about that. At the same time, I respect his right ultimately is earning his way to become a free agent again. I mean, we have a system that creates incentives for players to stay with their teams, but I also recognize that you've been in the league for a number of years, that a player is going to think about what he thinks is in his best interest. So it does stir up a lot of excitement around the league. I mean, it's obviously one team's loss, but it's another team's gain, and I think it makes often for a very exciting free agency period, an exciting summer. But so, I mean, I end up ultimately watching it more as a fan.
Right.
I mean, it's like, you know, I don't pick favorites here, but again, I recognize the balance of interest in the league, of continuity, but at the same time, giving other teams an opportunity to rebuild.
I tell you, one of the things to love about it, you're looking at LeBron James potentially being a free agent this summer, the Paul Georges of the world, and various other players. The NBA is now being talked about 24/7. You know, it's not an off season in a lot of people's eyes. How does the commissioner of the NBA feel about that? Because that's something that, you know, some people used to say about another league. They're saying that about the NBA now.
Well, of course, I like the excitement. I mean, but it's not just measured in column inches. I mean, you like certain kind of excitement more than others. I think for our summer league, when you see the young players coming in right out of the draft, showing up in Las Vegas just a few days later and playing in our summer league, and the amount of excitement, of course, ESPN's carrying those games, I think that's tremendous. And, you know, being out in Las Vegas, this is the first summer we're going to have all 30 teams there. You know, to talk about another sport, it reminds me of the baseball winter meetings. You have all the GMs, all the owners are out there, and I love that excitement around the game.
You know, I got to transition to a sensitive subject. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, spoke earlier about how neither the Golden State Warriors nor the Cleveland Cavaliers were going to be invited to the White House. Now, LeBron James is already on the record, along with Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and others. We're not going. That's not something that we're interested in. What do you make of all of that? What are the kind of things that you wanted to say about that?
I'd say my first reaction is one of sadness. I mean, it's something that's always been ceremonial. In fact, I don't know if you saw him, Bill Russell is here tonight, and it was his team in 1963 when President Kennedy was president from Massachusetts. I don't know how it worked in other sports, but that was the first year the NBA champion went to the White House in 1963 with Bill Russell. And we've talked about this before, but that was the same summer that Bill Russell stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial when Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech. So certainly politics have always been part of players' lives, and I'm proud of the fact in this league that the players, our coaches, our owners feel comfortable expressing their political points of view, and that they're multidimensional people. So it just, to me, it's a bit of resignation that this is where we find ourselves, that championship teams, and not just in our sport, but in other sports, aren't, you know, getting to celebrate in that way, in something that has historically been apolitical in Washington. But I think I have to put it in the greater context of where we find our country. And so I would say, though, but ultimately it saddens me because historically we've been able to use the NBA and all of sports to bring people together. You know, Nelson Mandela famously said sports have the ability to change the world.
Right.
And I think, so that can only be my focus, working with our players, working with our teams to bring communities together. And I think they're doing a great job doing that.
But you've done a great job. The players have been doing a great job. And a lot of people sit around in wonderment as to how the NBA has been able to come together and do such a wonderful job in the face of adversity coming from the President of the United States, whereas another league, the National Football League, has obviously had its issues.
Well, I can only speak about our league, but first of all, Michelle Roberts, who runs the Players Association, I think she's done a great job leading the players. LeBron happens to be very active in the Players Association. Chris Paul's the president, Carmelo Anthony. Those players, we spend a lot of time talking about these issues, and we've been fortunate that together with our owners who see it the same way, that, you know, that again, these are multidimensional people. They should talk about issues that are important to them. It doesn't mean everybody has to agree on those issues, but that's America. This is a platform of free speech. And so so we've been very fortunate. We've built those relationships. As you know, we spend a lot of time, building that kind of trust and respect. And whether it's in business issues or social issues, there seems to be a real commonality in this league.
What do you want people to know about the champion Golden State Warriors, meaning a Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, champion like LeBron James, in terms of how they conduct themselves and the kind of role models that they have been? What do you want people to peel away from what those guys, how those guys represent this league in this time of the
That's a great point. I mean, just take, Kevin Durant and LeBron, just two players. Like one of the things, and I'm almost embarrassed to be publicizing it because they don't, but, and I know you know this, but they support a lot of scholarships for young inner city kids. That's something they do in their own time. They work together, and again, Carmelo Anthony originally led this effort to work with police officers and young people of color in communities to bring them together because we know that you have to start building those relationships, building respect. And what I'd love people to know is they're truly multidimensional people. This notion of stick to sports, one, that was my point about Bill Russell. By the way, Bill Bradley's here tonight.
Right.
Same thing. He was politically active as a player, became a U.S. Senator, and then ran for president. So there's Wayne Embry has traditionally been involved in this organization. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. There's been a long history of it in this league. And what I want people to know is that this notion all of a sudden that sports have become politicized, I mean, to me, in fairness to the fans, they don't want to see it impact what these guys are doing on the floor. Everybody understands that. They want to see them come out here and be entirely focused on the game and performing at an all-star level. And to me, if then in their personal lives that they want to go out and talk about things that are important to them, and some fans may agree, some fans may disagree, but I think, again, that's what our country's all about. And I think they should respect that these young men are taking the time to inform themselves on the issues and want to have an impact in their communities greater than just being ball players.